Okay. Hello, everyone. I wanted to speak about the tears of an awakened species. And the freedom of letting it all out. Now, it's important to consider what principal image is guiding this episode. And the vision that is inspiring me to speak about this topic is that moment where a species has awakened to its potential. A species is awakened to its potential, and why would it have tears? What is incredible about the human mind is that it can fractalize. It can look at a pattern in a smaller reality, in a micro reality, and begin to see that pattern in a macro reality. So it might make us as human beings be like, yo, what are the reasons that an individual will cry? You know? And then what are the reasons that a species will cry? So the tears of an awakened species is in some sense, what is that species seeing that is causing there to be tears at all? Now, I have my own view on this, but before that, this episode is also about the freedom of letting it all out, right? So to be honest, I'll just say this as the vision I had for this episode, and then I'll build it up after. Because I'm going to go into a quote tunnel in this episode. I have it right open here. So the image, the vision I have is simply this, that I saw this video online that inspired me. It was very inspirational. And the video, excuse me. Okay, so what the video was in some sense this 11-year-old kid in the project somewhere in America, right, who was acting like a thug. This 11-year-old kid. And this middle-aged gentleman is walking like this guy who's like a father or something. In the video, you get the sense the guy's like recently become a father or whatever. But this guy's looking at this kid and he says, why are you so hard, man? You know, like, why are you acting like such a thug, right? And then the guy looks at the kid and says, you need to let it all out. You need to cry out. You need to let out all this built-up pressure that is influencing your behavior. So pretty much I saw a video where this 11-year-old thug is being convinced by this older gentleman who's like, yo, man, you just need to cry it out. You know, that means once you hold too many emotions inside, you hear this from someone who went into a sort of self-induced isolation from humanity for like a long period. Okay. If somebody's like, yo, are there any experts on loneliness? I'll be like, yo, there's one right here. In the video, the older guy was saying to the kid, like, stop acting so tough, just cry it out. And in the video, the guy says, have you lost anyone? Right? And the guy asks, are your parents alive? The kid says yes. Right? The kid says, did you lose your grandmother? Right? Sorry, the guy asked the kid, well, how about your grandmother? Do you have a grandmother? And the kid says she passed away this year. Right? And then the kid starts tearing up, and this guy just goes and hugs the kid and says, just let it all out. Right? And there was a huge revelation, not revelation, but huge insight into the human condition there. So in this episode, what I'm trying to say is that that individual human being, throughout that 11-year-old thug, okay, had experienced pressures in life that had stabilized it into an archetype it felt it cannot be itself anymore in. So it occurred to me that could it be that there is 8 billion human beings on this planet, and you know, let's not consider like super young children who don't have personalities yet, or people who are not totally conscious of the human condition. It's as if it occurred to me that every person needs to cry in the world, cry out. They need to cry out their emotion of the world that has failed them. Okay, there's times where you fail the world, and there's times where the world fails you. This should be spoken about. We can't keep acting like the world is a perfect place and then have a blind eye to what's actually going on, right? This world is in a, I don't want to say volatile state, but it's a fragile global collectivity. All right, like the global collectivity for now, I mean, some people are like, yo, money is evil. No, thank God, because of money, we have managed to tame the savageness of giant categories of people. There is more angles to everything, and once this conclusion has been accepted by the individual, the world starts opening up. Every situation you have been in your life, there has been another way and many other ways to look at it, right? That's the fascination of reality. There's so many ways to see it because our eyes are not all of it. So in that video, that guy was like, yo kid, stop acting so tough, let it all out and reset your psyche. Reset, it's another way of saying, right, that what do you do with information you don't know what to do with? And they don't talk about this, but how would I say it? This life of ours is imperfect. We are in an imperfect system, having perfect expectations and suffering. But is the perfection impossible? Is a way more advanced civilization than the current civilization possible if current civilization was civilization 1.0? How would civilization 2.0 look like? How would the next update of the totality of the human endeavor look like? You know, it's Christmas now, right now. Eight billion human beings. An image arose in like a film preview occurred to me. And that film preview was as if, imagine a species right before it takes its first awakened advanced step. That means imagine that day, right before that day, where 8 billion human beings suddenly decided to advance. You see a group of people advancing in accordance to their own ideology, adorable, but a species advancing in the void, magnificent, majestic. We might have ushered ourselves past the era of kings and queens, but if we just have this idea that the future generations wear the crown, wear the king. Imagine, do you want to be employed by somebody in the present, or do you want to be employed by someone in the future? That's living for the future. That's what it is. That means imagine a dimension opened up in every human being where they suddenly got this eerie but a spectacular feeling. Imagine whoever you are. I don't care if you're the president of a country, or the head of security of a parking lot. Whatever you are, at some point in this life, the mind fathoms how much more is there to this. What it is an effort is required for humanity to advance. Basic shit, Let me paint the picture this way. The vision is something like this. 8 billion human beings have one night of the soul's great remembrance of manifestation. Every human being, imagine on a specific day in the future, there will come a moment where every human being will suddenly let it all out. Everything you have held, like what it is, it's like crying in the loneliness of the cosmos, in the solitude of the cosmos, right? There is something where every person has access to in any moment, this idea of cosmic solitude. If you avoid the human system, the human program, you're going to notice you're going to become a worldly being. I'm one of those people who's saying been there, done that. I've experienced dehumanization on a psychological level, not in the outer realms, but in the inner realms through shocks. I could say I've had intense existential panic attacks. Not a psychological panic attack, in the sense of like, yo, what am I doing, with my life? Not that kind of a panic attack. A panic attack in the sense of like, what is life? What is existence? What is consciousness? What are all these creatures doing here? Why do we all have mouths and ears? Why is communication the necessary platform for the future to arrive through? It's as if, how advanced can a species be before the void consumes it? They say art is dead. No. The ears that hear art, the eyes that see art have closed. Art cannot die in the sense of like existence cannot psychologically not exist. I don't know, like there's some people in the New Age community, like when I stepped into metaphysics and philosophy, I treaded very carefully. I took slow steps towards wondering, okay, what is the actual framework of a biological organism that has a psychological capability to create versions or inner models to life and live in accordance to them. By the way, guys, check out Mr.Within's research lab, $0.99 per month. 0.99. It's like the lowest tier. Like, support this. Anyways, to keep going. So to think about the moment of an incredible global emotional revolution. That's what the tears of an awakened species, or the tears of the species, implies. A collective emotional reset and the restoration of the true human value. What does that mean? That means on this planet there is excuse me, there is three, this is just for the sake of speech in this moment, right? But there are three, like when I see, if they put 8 billion human beings in front of me, like if I saw 8 billion human beings from an aerial view, and they're like, yo, classify this dude, you know, and I'd be like, okay, I would classify it out of 8 billion human beings, how many human beings is their attention worshiping the past? How many human beings is their attention worshiping the present? And how many human beings are their attention worshiping the future? I'm talking to that crowd. The crowd's like, okay, the past is past, the present is waiting. I guess let's look at the future. Do you know? I'm talking to those people, right? Because let me tell you, and it's a notion of the yogic Eastern spiritual enlightenment, also the notion of the spiritual reunion with one's creator. The ultimate connection that can be made is with the ultimate power, the singular ultimate power. It took me a while to understand this. But the power of a singular context is immense. Okay, that means aside from categorizing people into past, present, future, I can classify people into 4 digits. Those who are zero to themselves. That means these are people who it's like there's 4 types of consciousness. A consciousness that as it is conscious, it is hollow to itself. These are the voidists. Like there are people now like that, but in the future, like these will be the banners. Okay, the voidists are people who they're like, all right, whatever this is, it's nothing. It's nothing, man. It's like well, there is no big deal in existence. That's the voidists for you. Then there is the singularians. And the singularians are really all those who the context of life is singular. That means you're one being in one world, in one in the eyes of one God. Nowhere in religious books it said truth is accessible to man. We are fighting over truths we cannot see. Therefore, divine administration is required, not the urge of a vicious animal to try to bite its future. When will that day come when you, like, let's say a young kid in an advanced civilization runs out of its house, right? It's not Christmas Day, it's the day of advancement, which is every day, okay? Every day, it's like celebration cultures are going to emanate 1,000 years. They will extend 1,000 years. That means you're going to come home after a day's work in the spirit of we are constantly as a species celebrating the advancement of our species. There will come a time in the future where all the news channels, all TV stations, any sort of media will be like, let us show you how advanced your world is in all dimensions, right? So when that feeling, that wind of advancement passes through the valleys of the human mind, the species will awaken to a different modality of behavior, a different position, not one where the past is promising defeat and weakness. Because how boring is that shit? How boring is looping misery? What I'm trying to do is I'm seeing that they've conditioned the human species. I don't want to say they, it's never a they, it's like everybody's involved, you know? It's like whose fault is how civilization looks like. Guess what? Everyone's fault. It's that newborn baby's fault. It's that old man's fault. Do you see? It's every human being that has not cared for the future more than their past or present. Because what is selfishness? What is greed? What is evil? The past wants to hit back. I'm telling you, those people who worship the past, they become very evil. But when I say worship the past, I'm not saying worshiping religion. Religion is a different dimension of human experience. That means it took me a while. I was like some guy running into, you know, thinking like, yo, man, I'm a being that exists in the world. Maybe I can speak about the true nature of the existence of the world. Little did I know that there is authorization here. This is why my authorization is no longer to speak about metaphysics as a being, right? As a pilot in this universal sector. My destination is no longer taking people to the truth of reality. My agenda or vision is really to build an advanced civilization as fast as fathomable. Guys, let me tell you something. It's not about just metaphysics, okay? This is what I realized. You know what it is? When you're raised in something, you see its flaws. And I was raised in a spiritual context, and I saw its flaws. What they don't tell you in life is all the ways that reality can happen that people don't know, but out of fear have to tell you it's this, right? I realized every human psyche is reacting to a massive, meaningless, unknown emptiness. And you know, guys, I asked myself, what is the value of interaction, of being some human being having a YouTube channel in the Milky Way galaxy? I realize, honestly, it's just shouting at the world like, yo, is the species smart enough to bring forth advancement? And if it is, it means it has to be smart on a cellular level. Alright guys, the car next to me is like, even though we're both parked, I feel like I'm in a race right now. Like a driving race. But anyways, to continue. The vision for this episode is the tears of an awakened species. What will that moment, if ever, look like, where a species, 8 billion biological organisms with a mind that's living ahead of them, with a great psychological capability, when 8 billion organisms suddenly realize, like, what the fuck have we been doing this whole time as a species? Like, seriously. Like we didn't understand the value of knowledge. We didn't understand the value of peace. We didn't understand the value of gentleness. We didn't understand the value of advancement being superior than image. That means people are investing a lot in how they look rather than what the world is becoming. Your presence in this world is more than a physical position. It's not about physics, metaphysics. You know, it's like you ask a physical being, do you believe in metaphysics? The person's like, yeah, I mean, where is the physics right now? You know? So, but when you ask a metaphysical being if you believe in physics, the metaphysical being is like, what are we doing with language in position? What are we doing with putting language like stickers on reality and thinking that's it? It is a vision. The words are in some sense code. The words in every book, language is a code for inner cinema. Do you know what it is? It's like a point where we don't have time to have an army and a general. The human species it's no longer possible to have soldiers and a general. Why? Because the general might have to become a soldier at any time. The soldier has to have the wisdom of the general at any time. So the only strategy is to shift from the framework of leadership and follower, or or soldier in general, or like teacher student and all that shit. Like we gotta surpass that. Everybody reaches a state of mind where you are a pilot. This is Mr. Within's Christmas gift. You are a pilot of what the human species is. If an alien, right? This is like an alien anecdote, Mr. Within's alien anecdote, let's call it, right? Like what it is if a group of advanced aliens from the Andromeda galaxy suddenly scooped you up with their technology and took you to the Andromeda galaxy, right? And put you in a civilization, and they were like, we've chosen you to be a representative of all human beings. You should, as a human being, be able to represent all humanity. It is the hug that was non-physically could not be given but had to be, right? It is like your parents might have hugged you, you know, your loved ones, your friends, whatever might have hugged you, but has your civilization hugged you? Has the idea of how great the human story can be hugged you? Do you understand? Right? People are like, somebody asked me, like, why are you writing a science fiction book? I'm like, because the children of the future generations deserve bedtime stories that in some sense show how mighty the future can be. That's the fascination that draws us into it. It's no longer a physical battle. It is a sort of how fast can the competence of a species advance to a sort of comfort with interstellar and multidimensional perception. Don't you want to know what the strength of human existence is? Don't you want to know what the might, what the best effort of whatever we are as creatures in this world? You know, our ancestors took the strategy, we don't trust the world yet, so everybody be savage, everybody free for all, you know, everybody being savage and violent. But the advanced humanity has to look at the violence and be like, yo, evil is inefficient as fuck. Like, excuse my language, inefficient AF. Evil just destroys. It is evil is like the maturity of like a 5-year-old. Like when a 5-year-old breaks something, we can't call that kid evil, but it is kind of evil. You see, it's kind of like all the yogis and gurus and self-help people were like, yo, man, work on yourself. Look at yourself. Well, guess what? After you've looked at yourself, the species is next. That means we need to usher ourselves into an era where 8 billion organisms have such a fascinating, advanced view on the world that legends are born, right? There was this game called League of Legends. Let me tell you this, forget that shit. It's the world has to reach a legendary state where human beings are attempting things that are unimaginable, right? Things of great amount, right? Like what I'm saying is now is the time not to, feed the narcissist. All right, guys, somebody in the chat section said evil doesn't look at the big picture. Yo, slow hand clap. Slow hand clap. No, evil does look at the big picture sometimes, but it doesn't care for it. I would say evil doesn't care for the big picture. It sees it. There are super smart evil people. See, guys, there is no such thing as evil and good. It's just beings in a world and how they behave with each other. If the behavior leads to destruction, evil. If the behavior leads to construction, good. Whoever wrote that comment in the chat section, well done. Well done. I'm glad to not feel alone in this endeavor. So what is the idea? The tears of an awakened species is when suddenly there is a consciousness leap. There is an upgrade. There is an internal upgrade in what the human idea is, what the human idea means, what is the sophistication of how the eyes of the human being looks at the world. You know, you might not believe it, but I can look at a person's eyes and get a sense like how deeply this person is noticing what existence is to them. Do you know? Like after a while you can see it. you can see conscious contentment in how intensely the life force beams through our eyes outwards. You see, I'm the reason I'm focusing on the advanced civilization is because I've decided to, rather than being a sort of metaphysical researcher, which is it's a side hobby now, like just a private hobby, nothing. I'm not going to be talking about metaphysics too much, only in the context of how it relates to an advanced civilization. If someone was like, yo, what could an advanced being, an advanced civilization treat reality as? Like the answer is very obvious. At that, if it's really in the future, the being has become the world. The human being, I don't want to say we're an evolutionary Alka-Seltzer tablet. This tablet, this biological organism thrown in a massive oxidization system. There was somebody I read online something, one of those sentences you read and you can never forget. The person's like, what if oxygen is poisoning the biological organism? And it just takes like 100 years for this oxidization process to complete, right? But in the same time, that's just different angle, different angle. How many more other ways are there to look at the moment that are hidden? Like, I feel it. It gives me, like, doesn't give me goosebumps. It gives me the might of a fascination that cares to understand what's actually going on here. Like, this might sound bizarre. If they ask me, hey, Amin, what is the meaning of life? I would say the meaning of life is that you are literally going up a mountain and then climbing down this mountain. So there is a peak you're trying to reach in life. Now, that peak is limited to how you perceive the context of the world. It's like some people live in the world, but they don't know what they're calling it the world. Like, they don't know what's behind that word. Imagine an advanced extraterrestrial enlightened species from the Andromeda galaxy landed on Earth. This is kind of close to the what I write about in my sci-fi. So imagine an advanced extraterrestrial civilization that was very advanced, graceful. It was so advanced it didn't need to be evil anymore. Evil always arises because something made you feel less, so you feel you have to forcefully pull yourself into the more. The arrival of the advanced humanity. That is our purpose. And once you understand, this doesn't mean it's devoid of your metaphysics or physical assumptions on reality. All I'm saying is, yo, you're starting out from your own world. Try to climb towards the most advanced position and serve the human reality, become a legend of mankind, and then exit the realm gracefully. You see, that's the ultimatum. It's like this whole time how we accepted reality was how it got meaning. So it's not about cloning everybody into one ideological system, but it's to be like, yo, oh unknown being that is associating with the language of reality. For a moment, pause the various simulations your mind, has extended forth on matter, and for a moment observe the meaninglessness, the unknown, the space, the emptiness, stillness, and silence of being. There's a moment where you see there is a possibility that nothing will happen. There is a huge possibility it might not get better, right? So the species has reached that point where it's like this flickering candle flame, and human beings are not caring to jump in front of the wind, like to block the wind from, you know, leading to pushing us towards inner extinction. If we forget the human natural decency, we have dehumanized too soon. And then that requires a different tactic. Like, I'm pretty much being like, okay, the species is good enough to advance. Okay, that's my view. But there could be a view where the species doesn't deserve to advance. There could be a view where the species is too ignorant to advance. There could be this view this species is too greedy to advance. So when will that point come? And my strategy was like, I got the vision in this sense where I'm like, yo, if I like, imagine there's the armies of good and evil are fighting, and the two generals are fighting, and suddenly this third being appears out of nowhere and tells both the generals, enlist your armies at my service to build the advanced civilizations. Like, he doesn't even say enlist, he says build an advanced civilization and then fight in it. And you'll see in the time that it takes for us to get advanced, we will see way beyond fighting. So let's say we reach that emotional, revolutionary, global moment where 8 human beings cried at the same time. Imagine something so divine happened as a global event that all human beings at the same time began crying. But their crying was not a crying of crying in a certain way, it was a release of the emotional harboring of inefficient moments. So pretty much it's kind of like we all cry out how savage and effed up our species and civilization has been, and then there's a pause moment. We ground ourselves in the stillness and silence, and then the most advanced initiatives of intelligent activity on Earth take place. That's my strategy. I'm proud of it, right? If let's say if I was in a group of like 50 advanced, like let's say generals of humanity, and we were all wondering about what strategy would be the greatest strategy, it would be the strategy of not imposing, putting greatness first, because from the beginning that greatness will extend in all areas. So the sooner you can find this view that greatness is the potential of reality, then your view on it changes. So you find this, let me tell you like this, it's just the release of intensity, the release of the intensity you've cultivated, right? Like, life has intensity. There's awkward moments, there's sad moments, there's breakups. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, there's situations where there's disconnections, there's new connections. It's like if we were advanced machines, like if it came to trust issues, it would be a constantly oscillating ratio. Do you know what I mean? Right? So in some sense, we're at this point where the species doesn't even trust itself to advance itself. So it's reacting to its distrust, and that leads to unnecessary savageness. Like, there's a justified violence, and then there's a fucking, excuse my language, but there's an unnecessary violence. Like, WTF, unnecessary violence means foolishness extended out from the interrupts. I wanted to have this view where, if imagine an extraterrestrial landed on Earth and I was walking in a park, and instead of like walking my dog, I just had my notebook and pen in my hand and headphones and music, and suddenly an extraterrestrial landed, and the advanced extraterrestrial was like, yo, explain humanity to me, what is this, right? What I would deep down from my heart like to say would be something in the lines, you whoever you are, firstly, I would like to know more about you, but I will go first, and I will tell the extraterrestrial that you have just landed on a planet where after 4.5 billion years, after a massive evolutionary program survival on this earth, and a super sophisticated position has occurred where we have the most advanced educational system, the most advanced healthcare, the most advanced technology, and the most advanced is not chaotic destruction. That's bullshit. The most advanced is in some sense the most efficient multidimensionally considerable order, because there's so many different types of human beings that to care for humanity means to care for the potential of 8 billion comrades in the void. So the greatest strategy would be to what is the fastest way we can make 8 billion human beings great, so that as a great step is being taken, the greatness of the species occurs. The advancement of the kingdoms in the sky takes place as well. Like, you might not believe it, but I feel like I was born 400 years too soon, and I should have been giving this talk in a sky city right now, in a city's in the sky, you know, with some sort of jacket that creates such level of heat that you don't worry about weather anymore. Like, imagine somebody creates the room temperature jacket. You could be in any condition and it's just room temperature, you know. The attention of humanity to what it considers superior has to come into the logical conclusion that the human being is a system, its advancement is an advanced system. So how do we advance the system of the human experience? So first we got to consider the levels to it. So when we look at a human being, there is a biological existential level. Okay, there's a biological level, let's say, right? Then there is, in some sense, an intelligent level, but that intelligent level displays itself as a behavior. Really, it's when you look at another human being, it's like there's a life behind those eyes moving it. There's something remarkable about consciousness. It's such a superior technology. To care for life is like trying to protect the most superior technology. So I would pretty much look at that extraterrestrial in the park and be like, bro, like, don't just land on Earth. Look, observe our species for a while, and then, you know, like, honestly, like, if a species was invading, this is what we would have to say to them, you know. Like, you're invading too soon. Just watch us for a bit. Watch what the human species can do united. The united front of the human species is it's really any human being that cares. All I can really say is that when the whole species emotionally resets, it means the past is not defining the free will. So the person finds themselves as if they've just landed on a new planet, they've landed into a new self. When you experience that post feeling of landing into a new self, what takes place for consciousness is the search for the greatest value. You could be the most successful person right now, but not realizing what is the greatest value, because value is energy. We're energetic beings. I wanted a world of geniuses. My mind was like, what would the most advanced state of the human intelligent activity look like on Earth? That's the whole vision, really. I mean, like everything else becomes boring the moment you understand it. It's only that which you can't understand that is the fascination that pulls you into the art form. In the same way that Beethoven, a genius musician considered by some, right? Beethoven has this quote where he says, "Don't only practice your art, but force your way into its secrets, for it and knowledge can raise men to the divine, can raise man to the divine." What he's saying is that once you live truly, you access a true world. And once you connect to a Mysterian factor, Mysterian means like it's like we can never know unknown variable to it. It's human programs. I'm telling you, when I see human beings, I see biological organisms that can sequence. It's like the brain processes what's happening outside of it, and then in accordance to how well it has received it, it expresses it. For me, it's as if like this. You might not believe it, but if I had the opportunity, I would like to live in a 24-hour, do you know, like workstation with the most advanced team of designers and builders for the next for designing the blueprints of an advanced civilization. Like that's like one of my dreams, you know. Somebody in the chat section says the universe is stranger than you can imagine. And let me tell you what's stranger. You know, the fact that we can imagine it at all. What is imagination? What is the value of having an ability to internally move life free to the laws of physics, right? Like, imagine, like, you're like, okay, I totally believe there's gravity, but why is it that I can visualize my car, like, lifting 100 meters into the air, you know, like a hover car? Right, so why is it that in my inner realms, in when I close my eyes in that imagination space, do you know, why is it that I can why is it that I can see a flying car, but in front of my eyes I can't? Right? So this means that the permission for reality to move behind our eyes is way greater than the laws of physics. There is something seeing the laws of physics, and then in some sense, I don't want to say manipulating it, but it's like the brain is fucking hilarious. What the brain is doing is so funny, right? We are like the funniest organism ever. We are the funniest creatures in the galaxy. I'm not kidding, right? We are like this biological program that became complicated enough to create an internal model to the world, update that whatever way it wanted, and then live in accordance to that in the outer realm. Do you understand? Like our brains are like hilarious, like the silliest geniuses. Do you know? I never thought like the human body could be funny. Yeah. But what the brain is doing in the sense of projecting a psychological realm. It's like, Mr. Within, is that language lands? It's like, sure, sure. Let me tell you this. We have human beings that practice martial arts. We have Shaolin monks displaying like beyond human level of discipline. Right? We're like, yo, robots can learn from these Shaolin monks. Like that's how disciplined they are. You know? But then there is just like an outer martial arts. Imagine there's something like similar to an internal martial arts, but it's not martial arts, it's an internal design art. That means how your attention designs reality behind your eyes is in accordance to freedoms greater than that which is authorized in the outer realms. I can visualize a flying car, my car can't fly in the outer realms though. in one of my talks, I managed to even visualize like futuristic road rage, where suddenly these kids with jetpacks, right, they land on the roofs of cars caught in traffic jams, and the guy comes out of the car, he's, "Dad, you darn kids," you know. How far can our attention go as a species? That's the true puzzle to solve. It's as if what puzzles us the most, what we are and where we're going. And pretty much in the future, the educational systems, if they're smart, like this is going for all the educational systems, universally speaking, right? So the educational system has to be like, all right, all schools have are like internally three schools, kind of like Harry Potter, right? And one is the school where the department of the school that teaches the past, one that teaches the present, and one that teaches the future. So imagine there are university professors, pouring their hearts out in regards to how advanced the mind of the human species can be to like students in a classroom, right? And imagine then there is in some sense the present actualization, because for me I was like, yo, student, teacher, all these weird archetypes. It should just be like, Buckminster Fuller, Marshall McLuhan. These guys were ahead of their time. They saw reality as spaceship Earth. We're all crew members. We're all, believe it or not, the soldiers of humanity. We just don't accept it, but we are. We have the biological human form. There's a human civilization. All right, guys, let me read the comments for a second. What is this? Yeah, guys, I'm not saying like, yo, just sit down and go into like some like metaphysics is nice, but it's as nice as a book in a library that you picked up to read. Do you know? So what I mean by that is that it's like to wonder is okay, but you have to be street smart with your own soul. The ego is very wise. Like there's a reason they called it the monkey mind, the archetype of Wukong, right? What is the might of your species? What is the greatness that is behind every person's eyes? Do we not realize there's 8 billion versions of the world? Internally, externally, one great earth to become the greatest. And why should we fear greatness? It's the only thing we can do in the void. You know? Recently, I've had a huge sense of disgust for the word trying. It's like trying doesn't make sense. It's either, it's like in a duality, there is no try. You either do or don't. You either are or are not. You either can or cannot. You see, that's the game of dualism. And advanced humanity is beyond, us, the story of what human beings just did. It is how the greatest symbiosis occurred. The symbiosis of a species with its planet, the symbiosis of a planetary effort with the stars. A great mankind that does not fear the sky that it belongs in, the skies that it belongs to. So after that emotional revolution within all human beings, where we're like, okay, we came back to neutrality. Now what do we see? And then you will understand why I'm saying the advanced civilization. You know, that idea is the most incredible idea known to the external realms. Excuse me, not to the external realms. That's the advanced civilization is the greatest human activity. It's the greatest human value. I found it, guys. Somehow I found it. That's the idea. The advanced civilization means that if the human species is a temporary effort, its strategy is, all right, I'm temporarily here, I'll give my best performance and then leave. And then fly out of here, you know? So the attention of the individual beyond the consciousness of ideological form. Who you are is the might of 8 billion organisms becoming organized. It's not that I'm saying we should be bees that build the greatest beehive, but I'm saying it is that situation where we are creatures designed for communication. So what would the advancement of communication look like? What would the revolutionary effort and mighty effort of a species beyond the language threshold? That means we become so advanced that concepts don't bother us. They are just forms where we become content. And this is something, whoever you are as a human being, you should do, right? Whoever's in advance, like, you just have to put your palm on a piece of grass, you know, outside, and just in some sense honor the earth, and just have the vision of serving whatever from your own worldview is the greatest advancement. Because the greatest advancement is not nothing, because nothing is where we began. So that means it's as if like Mr. Within is saying like, yo, I'm just this guy who's like, yo, what would the most advanced version of myself look like? And then I wondered what would the most advanced version of everybody look like? And then I wondered what would the most advanced version of everybody do? And then I wondered what would that be? And then I wondered what could that become? Then as you find yourself cultivating an ability to witness your inner realms. The inner realms is like really strange. So if somebody was like, Mr. Within, how would you teach someone to use their imagination? I would say you got to start from simplicity. So you got to be super simple when it comes to divinity. Super simple. That means nothing hidden. That's what I mean by letting it all out. Like that, at least the burden of the psyche is not on the burden of the existence. So it's like, what sort of state are you in? Like if you see, for example, there was this incredible archetypal story of this Japanese anime of these two characters. Maybe this is limited to a few viewers who can understand what I'm saying here. But there was this character, the archetype of Vegeta, and then there was this character archetype of Goku. This is this Japanese comic book made into a show called Dragon Ball Z or something. When I was a kid, this story was existent, right? So in this there was one character who held in himself a grudge, held him in himself pride, right? So he held on to qualities of ignorance that had ignorance in their amplification, right? But the other person had this view where he says power comes not out of desire but out of necessity. So you are simple, the moment is happening and then you occur with it. Do you see? And then they're like, yo, is that guy powerful? No, he is walking with power. Do you see what I'm saying? Like he's flowing in that rhythm, you know. So anyways, guys, I hope this episode was interesting. The vision behind of Mr. Within's research lab is, I'm like, all right, let's see how advanced the viewers of these lectures are. Like I was like, all right, let's create that kind of space where we can see, right? So anyways, guys, thanks for listening. And after the tears of an awakened species, The species has no burden, emotional burden from the past. Freedom danced before it couldn't. To discover the might of the species that you're existing in, to discover the advanced potential of the living humanity. You are as small as you hold the context of your world. The moment you realize you need to care for all human beings, you become an advanced being. Thank you for listening. An advanced civilization is the future's birthright.